Jakarta, located on the northwest coast of Java at the mouth of the Ciliwung River, is Indonesia's vibrant capital and largest city. Home to around 10.6 million people and 30 million people in the metro area, it's a bustling hub of life. But guess what? Jakarta is seriously sinking. Around 40% of the city is already below sea level, making it the fastest sinking megacity on Earth. Over the last 25 years, some areas have plummeted more than 16 feet. By 2050, a staggering 95% of Jakarta could be underwater. To prevent this, officials launched a daring plan: the GIANT SEA WALL JAKARTA around Jakarta Bay. So, can this colossal shield save the sinking city? How far has this ambitious project come along? And if this mega seawall doesn't work, is there any other solution the Indonesian government is considering? Let us get into the details. But before we dive deeper, if you're fascinated by groundbreaking infrastructure projects and want to stay updated with the latest in engineering, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon. You'll be the first to know about the most incredible projects reshaping our world. To start with, let's talk about Jakarta's flood problems. You see, Jakarta is located on a deltaic floodplain with 13 rivers flowing into the city from the southern highlands of western Java. This makes the city highly prone to flooding. What's even crazier is that the coastal regions of Jakarta are sinking at an alarming rate, about 20 centimeters per year. Meanwhile, the sea level is rising at just 0.5 centimeters per year. So Jakarta's land is sinking 40 times faster than the sea is rising. This combination of sinking land and rising sea levels is a recipe for disaster. Over the past century, flood events in Jakarta have skyrocketed. In 1982, there were just 2 recorded floods. By 1960, that number had grown to 5, and by 2010, Jakarta was facing 10 major floods. Surprisingly, it's not because of increased rainfall. Data from 1860 to 2007 shows that rainfall levels have remained fairly consistent. The impact of these floods has been devastating. Flooding has become a regular nightmare for Jakarta, especially during the monsoon season. The 2007 flood, for instance, was a catastrophe. It claimed 76 lives and displaced or affected 500,000 people. So Jakarta's growing flood risk isn't really about climate change causing more rain. It's about the land sinking and the sea rising, creating a perfect storm for flooding. But what exactly is causing the city to sink so dramatically? Engineers and geoscientists have pinpointed at least 4 reasons why Jakarta is sinking: excessive groundwater extraction, the increased weight of buildings, the compaction of young alluvial soils, and tectonic activities. The 2 biggest culprits, though, are the excessive extraction of groundwater and the weight of all those buildings. One study really digs into these top 2 causes and how they're tied to the unique way Jakarta has developed. Essentially, Jakarta has been growing in a way that benefits the wealthy and well-connected elites the most, squeezing profit out of the city. Groundwater extraction is a big part of this. As the city expanded upwards, it needed more water, leading to deeper and deeper wells being drilled. There's a clear link between groundwater extraction and the city's sinking. In 1879, Jakarta had 42 groundwater wells. By 1968, that number had jumped to 352. Fast forward to 1998, and the city had 3,626 registered groundwater wells, a tenfold increase in just 30 years. The problem of land subsidence really took off in the 1970s, right when the number of wells was skyrocketing. Then there's the weight of the buildings. Jakarta's built environment has seen a massive horizontal expansion, especially since the 1960s. From the 1770s to the 1960s, the city's modern planned area grew by just 17.7%. But by 2014, modern planned areas covered 83.7% of Jakarta. That's almost a 65.5% increase in just 5 decades. So the city's rapid and uneven urbanization, driven by relentless groundwater extraction and building expansion, has significantly contributed to Jakarta's sinking problem. Between 2000 and 2050, the coastal flood area is expected to balloon by 110.5 square kilometers due to both land subsidence and rising sea levels. If nothing changes, Jakarta could be completely submerged by 2050. So what is being done to prevent the awaited disaster in the future? The Indonesian government initiated a feasibility study for a massive dike on Jakarta Bay to tackle this looming crisis. This ambitious project, known as the National Capital Integrated Coastal Development Master Plan, or more popularly the GIANT SEA WALL JAKARTA, aims to save the city. The NCICD involves constructing a colossal seawall along the northern coast of Java to protect Jakarta from sinking and flooding. This giant seawall will also create large lagoons inside it to buffer the outflow from Jakarta's 13 rivers, essentially acting as a massive pumping reservoir. And the cool part is that the seawall will be shaped like a Garuda, the mythical bird that is Indonesia's national symbol. This design will be functional and an iconic symbol for the nation. The construction is expected to take about 10 to 15 years, and in the meantime, existing dikes will be strengthened to provide temporary protection. But what about funding such a massive project? To make the giant seawall project more attractive to private investors, the wall's surface will be transformed into a hub of urban development. This isn't just a massive dike, it's a potential new center for Jakarta. Since the project carries a heavy price tag of $40 billion, the Indonesian government can't foot the bill alone. That's where private participation comes in. And there's an exciting international angle too. Indonesia is collaborating with the Netherlands, which could open doors for further bilateral trade between the two countries. The giant seawall is expected to stretch an impressive 32 kilometers, from the city of Tangerang in the west of Jakarta all the way to Jakarta's Tanjung Priok harbor. This mega project will unfold in two phases. The first phase, which kicked off in October 2014, involves strengthening and enhancing the existing coastal dikes along 30 kilometers and constructing 17 artificial islands in Jakarta Bay. The second phase is even more ambitious, which involves building the giant seawall itself. This colossal dike, which will span 32 kilometers, will include not just flood protection, but also an airport, harbor, toll roads, residential areas, industrial zones, waste treatment facilities, a water reservoir, and green spaces, all spread across about 4,000 hectares. Now, while the government is considering the seawall project, it's also moving ahead with another bold plan to relocate the national capital from Jakarta to the jungles of East Kalimantan on Borneo Island. Back in 2019, President Joko Widodo proposed this ambitious move, citing Jakarta's chronic flooding and traffic problems as the main reasons. The new city, called Nusantara, is already under construction. Nusantara is planned to be a sustainable forest city that puts the environment at the heart of its development, aiming to be carbon neutral by 2045. Situated on Borneo, the world's third largest island shared with Malaysia and Brunei, Nusantara is set to become a beacon of green urban planning. President Joko Widodo envisions a city powered by renewable energy, optimized for pedestrians, and boasting efficient public transportation. In 2019, nearly 300 companies vied for the chance to develop the master plan for this new capital. The winning proposal came from Indonesian urban planner Sibarani Sufyan. His innovative design takes cues from Borneo's unique climate and terrain, featuring stilted buildings and elevated walkways that navigate the hilly landscape, allowing for cool breezes and effective rainwater dispersal. Although no structures have been completed yet, there's a lot of pressure to finish the first phase by the end of 2024. This will be when President Joko's term ends. This project is one of the biggest infrastructure undertakings by the Indonesian government and is set to transform the nation's future. Moving a capital city is a rare and massive attempt, but it's not unheard of. If successful, Nusantara could set a new standard for sustainable urban development, providing a fresh start away from Jakarta's persistent issues. So as Jakarta battles against time and tide, the stakes couldn't be higher. The giant seawall and the new capital of Nusantara are enormous undertakings that could reshape Indonesia's future. But will these ambitious projects be enough to save a sinking city and provide a sustainable future for its millions of residents? The real question is, can human ingenuity outpace the relentless forces of nature? And if Jakarta succeeds, what does this mean for other vulnerable cities around the world? What are your thoughts? Could similar strategies work in other coastal cities facing similar threats? Join the conversation in the comments below. And please help our channel and make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon. You'll be the first to know about the most incredible projects reshaping our world.